Welcome to Small Biz Life, episode 29, Confidence. Just do it. Does this sound familiar?
Oh my God, I have so much to do today.
Don't forget to breathe.
But I have almost 400 emails in my inbox and 30 phone calls to make.
Have you looked into getting a virtual assistant yet?
Oh, and I need to schedule all my social media posts.
Did you drink anything today?
I had coffee.
Did you eat today?
Did I mention coffee's a bean?
This is Small Biz Life.
Welcome back to Small Biz Life. My name's Kristen Ingram, and I'm here with my co-host,
Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And if this is your first time listening, welcome to the show. Jeff and I are husband and wife, and we are small business owners. I'm a certified public accountant.
And I'm an information technology analyst.
We sound like a power couple.
It is powerful. You know what that means? I really don't do anything.
That's what that means?
I just tell other people, oh, you should do it this way. That's really what it means.
But you're confident in doing it.
That's right. I am very confident in doing it. You have to be.
And that's why today we're going to talk about confidence.
This is a topic I really like because people accuse me all the time of being very confident. Sometimes arrogant, but that's really more when I joke around. They maybe get that impression, but people have always confused me, and I believe my wife as well as being very confident people. And I just want to say straight off the bat that confidence it's not so much a skill that you have. It's not this thing about you. It's the way people perceive you.
Yeah, because I think it's something, you're right, that people will tell you that you appear confident. And I think it's not one of those things like, I'm a confident person. Because I don't think anybody thinks they're a confident person.
Because that's maybe where you enter into the realm of arrogance to where, oh, I got this, and I've joked before and said such things, but usually I question almost everything I do. I think the difference between people who people think are confident and people who people think are not confident, it's the distance of time between when you are first approached with a problem and you start acting on it.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. And I think part of it is results.
Yeah,
absolutely. So before we get too deep into this, I want to talk about why this is important and why we're covering this. So I think there are three things that make this episode important. The first one is, as a small business owner, you're the face of your business.
Yeah. And
so if you're not showing confidence, it's going to harm your business.
Exactly. I think, when you're in a big business, you can fall back on your employees maybe to be able to fill in those gaps.
Or management, people above you.
Yeah. That's the boss's job, or the sales force does that. You can look to people to fill in the gaps of your skill set when you're in a larger business.
There's really no one to hide behind when you have a small business.
Especially if you're like most small businesses, you're lucky to have one employee. I'd say almost half of the businesses are solopreneurs.
Right.
Yeah.
So, even if you have employees, typically, the first employees that you hire are like administrative assistants to get that off your back. So you're still sales, marketing, primary person who's doing the work, so you really are that point person that people are looking to so that they feel good about the work that you're doing.
Yeah. And if you do have employees in a very small business, they're going to look to you for what to do, how to do it. And if you can't present that in a confident way, like this is how it needs to get done, they're going to find their own way of doing it, which might not be as good as what you know.
Right. And that's where I think a lot of small businesses get into trouble when they start hiring employees, is that if the employees see weakness in your management style, then they're going to either A, take advantage of that, or B, they're going to leave.
Yeah. And both of those are actually equally as bad.
Right.
Because the person who leaves is the employee you really wanted. The people who stay, who take advantage of you, they will bring your business down. And then they will be frustrated and mad at you when it collapses.
Right. And typically people who lack confidence are the ones that allow those employees that are taking advantage of you to stay way too long.
Yeah.
So that's the first one.
Yeah, we'll do a different episode on how to deal with employees. That's easily one episode, maybe 100.
Yeah, I know. We could do a podcast just on that.
Yeah.
The second item is that confidence equals trust.
Yeah.
There is no quicker way to build trust with someone than to have confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Not to be arrogant, that turns people off, but to know what you're talking about and be comfortable talking about it.
And don't worry about being perceived as arrogant some of the time. Some people might consider you arrogant, especially if they're extremely self-conscious or they're not necessarily, it's what goes back to, you can't please everyone all of the time. Right. And some people will maybe think you're arrogant. Some people will think that, well, you're a know-it-all or you're just trying to make money. There will always be reasons that people will decide not to interact with you. But there's 7 billion people, folks. Don't worry about each individual who chooses not to interact with you.
And the last one is confidence equals intention. And so when you are confident, you are purposeful about what you're doing in a way that makes you act.
Yeah.
And I think when we were putting this episode together, we were very cautious about using the word intentional.
Yes.
Because a lot of people use the word intentional as a crutch to not act.
Well, I have to do at least 752 more hours of research on my weekly blog post to be able to deliver it to the people who read my blog.
Right. And so, like, as a disclaimer, because we both agreed that we were going to talk about this in this episode. So we mentioned last week that we have the notebook, right? So we flipped through the notebook, and because of a number of conversations that I've had with people this week, confidence seemed to be the topic of the week. Yeah. And that was in the book. So we're like, all right, we're going to do an episode about confidence. And then we both went, okay, crap. Okay, what are we going to do?
Yeah, I believe my first comment was, well, you just do it.
Yeah.
Like, it's really that easy. And it's obviously not. But that's the first thing that comes to my mind because I'm getting past the question and moving to action.
Right. So we did a total of 15 minutes of research for this episode. And that included going, okay, well, what do you think about this? Like, that was our brainstorming, kind of going through, making sure we had the wording that we wanted. You know, one thing that people who are described as confident do is they act. And people who tend to have issues with confidence will question themselves and rethink and question and pause and, you know, be overly intentional.
That's right. You will create your own excuses to not act. Right.
Being confident means you're moving forward. You're being, you know, actively intentional. Is that something? Or intentionally active, maybe? You know, we're not saying that you be reckless in your business.
No.
You definitely don't want to do that. But you have to make decisions. You have to make plans, and you have to stick with them.
Yeah. If it takes you a month to make a decision, you can lose customers.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's like you have to be confident when you're providing an estimate that you're going to be able to cover your cost at a minimum, you know, or if you're taking a loss, you're doing it on purpose. But you have to be able to have faith in in that portion of your business to be able to present estimates to people and maybe get work.
Right. So I think there are two main things that cause a lack of confidence. I think one of them is level of knowledge. Typically, people don't feel that they have the right level of knowledge to go out and sell their product or do the work. Mm-hmm. Even if they actually have it, the business owner does not think they are smart enough or knowledgeable enough.
The big thing to keep in mind whenever you're talking about confidence is more about perception. And when it's yourself and you lack confidence, it's your self-perception. There could be truth or not truth to it. That's where it gets a little tricky. But the thing is, if you really stop, think, and, do the research needed and act, and the more you do that, the more practiced you become, the better you are.
We don't think we're smart enough. We don't think we have the right level of knowledge. Mm-hmm. And we do.
Yeah.
It's just, it's not good enough for our expectations. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where the second one comes in, is that the second reason that people lack confidence is because they're not comfortable with themselves.
Yeah. I think that's maybe the primary reason. Mm-hmm. It's really, it's a self-condemnation of yourself. Some people will talk about it as fear. Those are the voices of fear in your head. There are lots of different ways to talk about it, but really it's a bad self-perception. And it's usually not across your life, but there's usually certain aspects of your business that you will lack confidence in.
Right. So, a lot of times, because I work with a lot of online businesses, so it's, I don't like my voice. I don't like how I look. Mm-hmm. I don't like my hair. I need to lose some weight. There's a lot of different things that people will pick up on in themselves.
Yeah.
And that one thing is enough to drag their entire confidence level down.
Yeah.
To nothing. Here's the secret with this. No one is confident 100% of the time.
Unless they're maybe narcissistic.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. I'm like, unless they're narcissistic. Everybody has their moments where they question what they're doing, where they're not sure if they're making the right decision. Mm-hmm. The difference with people who are confident is that they don't let that stop them.
Part of it too is it's an evolutionary thing in us. It's people who survived over the length of time humans have been around are people who didn't make the big mistakes.
Right. They weren't eaten by a tiger.
By a tiger. When they were learning to start fire, they did not set themselves on fire. They set the wood on fire. We are the people who survived, and we're the children of the children of the children of who knows how many generations of people who survived, which means all of us have this trait to self-preserve. And a lot of the reasons that these questions come up in your brain is because you are actually super successful at that trait. Mm-hmm. You're more successful than other people. Now, if it's a point where you drag and do, you can work on it and get better on your own, no problem. If you are so petrified that you cannot move forward in one aspect of your business, every time you actually even try it, you are literally paralyzed. You can't move with fear. That's where it's a phobia, and it's not necessarily a clinical term. I can't diagnose, but when it gets to a point where you can no longer even act, you really should seek help and get someone to work you through that, because that's a problem, and it will be with you. You need to be able to at least act, and a lot of people, as like I said, it's the length of time. But if there's never a time at which you act, then you're beyond just what most people go through in this.
Well, and the thing is, a lot of us think as small business owners that it's a knowledge thing. Mm-hmm. if I just learn more about it, if I hire the right consultants, it'll become better.
Yeah.
And I find with a lot of business owners, it's actually an issue with the person themselves.
Yeah, the lack of knowledge thing that you throw at yourself is really a cover.
Right. If you have something in your business that you are afraid to do, or that you're really have an aversion to doing, to the point that you keep putting it off and putting it off, that's where you've got to look inside and say, okay, what is it about me that makes me not want to do this? What's really holding me back? And it might be something like, I don't like the way I look on camera.
Yeah.
It might be my hair is thinning and I don't like the way it looks, or my teeth are too yellow, or I should lose 30 pounds. Whatever it is, it's not going to get any better until you actually identify what it is. If you're having issues with lack of confidence, you have to spend some time with yourself and figure out what is going on.
And don't necessarily ever trust the first thought that comes into your brain. There's a difference between a symptom and a root problem, and you need to get to the root of it. And, talk to people you trust, talk to professionals, whether they be like, say, a priest or like a religious person who just happens to counsel a lot of people, or someone who's trained. Don't necessarily go to family, or really close friends.
Yeah.
Because they have a bias about you and they trust you implicitly, and maybe will bring your biases of yourself into themselves.
Yeah. And, if you want to start digging, back when we were doing the goal setting episodes, we had talked about going through and asking yourself why. That's so if you're like, I don't like to be on camera. Okay, why? Well, I don't like the way I look. Why? So just remember that confidence is a facade.
Yeah.
Right? It is something that you create. So let's talk about some tips. We've got 9 tips that you can use.
First tip, stop comparing yourself to other people. The person in the group who you think is really successful might or might not be. Maybe they present themselves better than you, in your opinion. But that's not what matters. What matters is the quality of work that you are presenting to your customers.
Right. And you're not going to be at the same point as someone else. So maybe they were struggling with exactly what you were struggling with 5 years ago, and you don't know it.
Yeah.
They've built their business, over the last 20 years, but you don't know that because they only came into your view in the last 2 months.
Your avatar is who you were 5 years ago.
Yeah. But that's true. So think about the people that you look up to are probably 5 years ahead of where you are. So you can't say, I should be where this person is.
Yeah. And you know what? You'll never be that person, even if it's someone a peer. You're not them. Don't try and be them. That is not going to work for you because you're you and not them, or it would work.
That was very insightful.
That was super insightful.
All right. Tip number 2. This is really hard for a lot of people. Always make eye contact.
Really? I didn't even know that was an issue. So
a lot of people have trouble with that.
Okay. Because I was always told, from a child, you always look someone in the eyes.
Yeah. And and the thing is too, but in some cultures.
Oh, that is actually offensive. You're right. Yeah.
It's offensive to make eye contact.
So always make eye contact depending on where you are, I guess.
Where appropriate.
Yeah.
But when you're talking to someone, you want to look at them. We have this horrible habit in this day and age, that we're kind of glancing at our phone while somebody's talking to us, or, we're looking off in another direction. That tells people that they're not important in our culture.
Yes.
So, when you're doing business in the United States, making eye contact is very important because it makes people feel like what they're talking about or the conversation that you're having is important to you.
Yeah.
And that comes off as confidence when you look somebody in the eye.
And one of the reasons you might even be doing it is you're actually not confident. So you're trying to distract yourself. So you're trying to look at your phone so you look more important to the person, but really you're telling them that they're not valued.
So the third one, it's funny because this one we kind of wrestled over the language for a little bit. And we agreed on tip number 3, practice self-care.
Yeah.
A lot of the confidence issues, when we talked about people not feeling comfortable with themselves, a lot of times it has to do with appearance. And this is a big problem for women. Most women have some sort of appearance issue. There's some part of themselves that they're not happy with. And so the more you practice self-care, this has a couple different things it'll do for you. One, it could help you improve your appearance. So if you eat better, you'll have more energy. If you exercise, you're getting endorphins going, which makes you happier, which helps with your confidence. It might help you get in better shape. Self-care and taking time out for yourself also tells you that you think you are worthy. When we as women tell ourselves that we are worthy of that time, we are worthy of that care, that will help improve your confidence.
And I want to point out something too. Maybe you believe that you weigh too much. You can't completely trust yourself when it comes to this. People get into serious eating disorders and they will be rail thin to the point where my mic stand is almost as thick as they are. And they will sit there, look in the mirror and say that they're fat. You really need objective advice. Once again, not from friends, not from family.
From your doctor.
From your doctor, especially a nutritionist. If that's really your thing, work with people who know approximately what you should look like, but work with professionals in these areas to make sure that you don't let your mind take over there, because this is one area. I mean, until Karen Carpenter, no one knew, even of eating disorders really. But, when she literally starved herself, and then even when she stopped doing it, her heart was so weak, it killed her. When you really get stuck on this, interact with professionals and really take their advice, because it's very easy. And this is a growing problem in men today too.
Yeah.
We really have to have an objective idea of what we should look like. And if you're a little overweight and you're okay with it, embrace who you are. And if you're really okay with it, don't worry about that. And the great thing when it comes to appearance, it's not all about you. A lot of it's about knowing your customer. And this is a great excuse to get to know them more. What do they look like? No, I don't necessarily mean facially, but like clothes. There are vast differences in cultures of companies of what they look like. If, you're going after banker type people, they're probably dressed better. You better be dressed a little bit better than your customer. But if you dress too much better than your customer, it might put them off too.
Jeff makes a really good point there, because most of my local clients are, in car repair, in landscaping, construction. I work with a lot of people who wear jeans for a living. And if I go into their office in a suit, there's panic mode, because they either think the IRS is coming or there's a problem with the bank. Or,
wait, have I been this overcharged for so long?
Or, but they think that there's a problem.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things I do with my clients is, like Jeff suggested, is, I dress a little bit nicer than my clients.
And that shows respect. Once again, this is culturally appropriate, but yeah.
I think it's really important, to understand what you're comfortable with and find the right client for you. I am not a business suit person. I never have been a business suit person. even in my career, I worked for firms where business casual was okay. Rarely had to wear a suit. I own one suit right now. I wear it only when I have to, which is not very often.
Yeah. And I'm just the opposite. Right now, I'm actually dressed in a tuxedo. I do for all of the podcasts. But there are some people who honestly do feel better when they're dressed up. And there's nothing wrong with those people. And, if they're my client, when I go see them, I'm dressed differently than when I go see where I'm kind of like Kristen, where I sort of seek out clients who dress around the area I do.
Yeah. That's why, I like working with small businesses, and I think it's funny because one of the things that we tend to do as small business owners is we take what we learned in the corporate world and we bring it down into the small business
Same
realm.
language, same dress code, everything.
Right. And, when you're having trouble connecting with customers, it may not be a confidence issue. It may not be a knowledge issue. It could be language and appearance.
And I'll put it to you this way. I didn't have an issue when I first started working in small business, probably back in 2005, with knowledge. I did not have, connecting on a personal level with people. That's something that comes very naturally to me. But I had a huge language barrier. And a lot of it was, one, not listening to my customers enough to realize that when I'm telling them technically what's going to happen with the new big thing I'm going to do for them, they have no idea what I'm talking about. Them being normal people don't typically want to look stupid because they're like, should I know about this? They have the same confidence issues that we all have too. Or some of them will, very bluntly tell you, what are you talking about? Get out of here. I don't want what you're selling. You're selling voodoo to me. But that's something I had trouble with because I had worked very, very well corporately for years. And I knew when I walked in and I presented it this way, it worked all the time until I didn't.
Right. Yes. So, part of it is a language thing. Part of it's an appearance thing. And you can overdress. Yes. There is such a thing.
And underdress too.
Yes. Okay. Give us number 4.
Understand the learning power of failure. One of my favorites.
Explain this to me.
Okay. So the idea is everyone has successes. Most of us ignore nearly everything that we do when we succeed. Do you remember the words off of your first spelling test? Probably not. Well, you might know the words, but you don't remember them on that list. Do you maybe remember the first test you failed? Well, depending on how old you are, that also might be difficult, but actually much more likely. You're much more likely to retain information when you fail doing it. There's nothing like failure to make you succeed. And once again, this is one of those things, go to Uncle Google and say, what was Bill Gates' big failure? What was Steve Jobs' big failure? These people had massive failures, much more spectacular than we'll probably ever achieve. And most really large business people will admit, especially the ones that grew from nothing to the big business person, who took that business from zero to $1 billion+. They will almost always talk about a failure in their career path that made it possible for them to get to where they are. And it is probably more than one failure that I'll remember.
Right. So it's important when you're looking at failures to use them as learning opportunities. We've all had failures in our lives. We've all had products or services or businesses, some aspect of our life that did not go the way we thought it was going to go. And that's okay. We want everything to be perfect all the time.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people look at failure as like, this huge demoralizing.
Yeah. I'm not good at this thing.
Right. The thing I always look at if something doesn't go the way that I want, I don't usually use the term, failure. Something didn't go the way I planned.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think a lot of times, like, people think that a failure is like terminal. And the way that I look at them is they're learning opportunities. I tried something, it didn't work. It's like science. You try something, it doesn't work, you try something else. But we get so caught up in, oh my God, it failed. So, number 5, understand that everything cannot be perfect.
Yeah.
And I think, this goes back to the wanting to avoid failure. And so we get in our minds that, well, if it's perfect, it won't fail.
Yeah.
Right. And if we get it to the point where we think it's perfect and it fails, then we think that the entire thing is crap. Where when you don't strive for perfection, right, you're striving for something that's really, really good, but it's not perfect. And you put it out there. And if it does not do as well as you thought it was going to do, which most people are like, oh, it's an abject failure, and they scrap it.
That's right. Done.
It might just mean that it needs some tweaking.
Iterations.
Exactly. Brendan Burchard says in one of his podcast episodes on perfection that nothing is perfect until you release it, you put it out there, get feedback from people, and work to improve it. Right? Because if we just sit there ourselves and say, okay, I'm going to work on this until it's perfect and not get any external feedback, which what's better external feedback than selling it to your customers, and getting feedback from them on how to improve version 2. You can't create something. First of all, if you're a believer, you can't make anything that's perfect because the only thing in existence is perfect is God.
And if you're not a believer, there's nothing perfect. So, I mean, come on.
So you got to get both sides there, right? It's very important. But I mean, that's the thing. It's like people have faults. Therefore, the things that we create are going to have faults.
I mean, think about it this way. Most people have seen grammatical errors in blog posts. Now, some blog posts will reach a level of errors to which you will no longer want to read them.
Correct.
However, there are probably multiple blog posts that you've read in your life that there are grammatical errors in, and you've read completely and enjoyed, shared out on every social media you knew because it was the best article ever.
Absolutely.
Or really, if you break down the sentence structure when we deliver stuff orally, it's not a scripted show. There are lots of incomplete sentences. Sometimes there are thoughts that get interrupted and they just stop. And it seems more natural in a flow of conversation. And sometimes, you don't even notice it when you're listening to it. But if you would really break down all of the sentences, and sometimes it is even apparent when you do listen to it, there are all kinds of missing syntax and grammar when we speak. But that doesn't stop us from speaking.
Right. And it's much easier to notice when it's written than when it's spoken.
Yes. Because you lose a lot of the cues that you have, the inflections of the voice, and maybe sometimes the grammar is cut off on purpose. Who knows? But it's much harder to know that it's a joke when it's written and there's like a half of a sentence.
Right. So don't strive for perfection.
Yes.
Okay. Because it will slow you down.
And you're not capable. Just right now, pause the show for a second. Wait, before you pause though, let me finish the statement. In a second, pause the show and just tell yourself, I can't make it perfect. What I need to do is make it good, valuable content. And over time, the more you develop it, the more times you put it out there, the next time you release it, it will be even better.
Yeah, I have a little plaque over my kitchen sink, and this is kind of in the same vein. It says, God didn't do it all in one day, and neither can I. And I think, when we're striving for that perfection, we're striving to make it exactly the way it needs to be, it keeps us from progressing forward. It is a form of paralyzing yourself.
And here's a cute little story about Kristen for everyone. Kristen is very confident when she's doing her work side. or she'll appear that way. But when it comes to personal life, the reason she has that plaque hanging up over the kitchen is because she didn't understand that, between the two of us, we work many hours a week. And a lot of those we work together on purpose because we enjoy what we do. But the thing is, when you're spending 60 hours a week, you can't create time from nothing. The dishes don't get done every night in our house because we're not paying someone to come in and do that. And a lot of our time gets spent doing other things. And it does get frustrating sometimes because she believes this ideal that, well, I'm a modern woman. I can do whatever I want to. Yes, as long as you understand that there are 24 hours in a day and Krista needs to sleep 8 of those.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can fit it in your schedule, go at it.
And that's why it sits above the kitchen window.
Yeah.
Because it's typically I'm standing at the kitchen sink going, the kitchen's not clean. The dishes aren't done. And then I look at the sign and I go, all right, I'm going to bed.
And maybe if yours is delivering the content to your listeners or to your readers or delivering products to your customers, put it over your computer.
Yeah.
You can print it out. It'll save you some money on the actual item. It won't look as cool, though.
It does. It looks cool.
Yeah.
It's nifty. Okay. Number 6. Find role models with behaviors you want to exhibit.
Yes. And this is slightly different than comparing yourself to others. And here's the difference. If I want to be a great basketball player, I go find one. I'm from Indiana, so I have only one choice I'm allowed to pick by actual state law, which is Larry Bird. And so I sit there and I can watch Larry Bird play basketball. I can practice to try and dribble like him. I'll set up to try and take shots like Larry Bird. I will miss more than Larry Bird will because I don't have the actual skill set and I've really not worked nearly as hard at it as he has. And he's also about 10 inches taller than me. But the simple fact is I could still get better at basketball by watching Larry Bird play and trying to mimic the moves of his that work, that I think are what make him a great player. And the same way I can do that with Larry Bird, you can do that with becoming a better salesperson. You've met good salespeople. And it's funny, the more you think about, like Kristen and I now will walk into a store, we'll walk out like, that was a good salesperson. Or we'll go, that was a horrible salesperson. It could be either or, but the more you start working on it yourself, the better you'll become at identifying someone who's good at it. And then you sit there and go, well, really, why were they good? What did they do for me that worked for me? And you can take your lessons away from that and you practice those virtual shots. I guess that's a computer guy. I mean, I can only think of virtual, but you practice those kind of skills over and over again until you get them right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then understand that your goal is not to become that person. Your goal is to learn better past. And what you'll find is when you get to a certain level of skill at shooting that basketball, you'll find that, well, maybe actually if I actually twisted my hand a little bit more this way, it'll go in the basket more for me because I'm not actually Larry Bird.
Right.
But until you practice it a lot and miss a lot of shots, you don't learn that.
So you never know where you're going to find somebody that has skills that you want to have or that you want to develop.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like a huge influencer.
Yeah. And like I said, it's really in the strangest places sometimes, it's like I learned certain skills in dealing with other people at a management level from secretaries. They're very used to working with people at those levels. And a lot of times people ignore and don't pay attention to them. So they have heightened skills when it comes to those kind of scenarios because they need those to deal with, the people who are higher up in the food chain. Or for example, most people would not know this. If you want to learn to dance, just come out with me. We'll go dance and you just watch me. You'll learn my ranene and you'll get much better.
You're going to make that a thing.
Yes. Oh, yes.
He's working on it. All right, number 7. I'm just going to leave that one there. Number 7.
It's hard to follow the
He is actually a really good dancer, though. You know, little known fact about Jeffrey, that this might come up on Jeopardy someday, you know, when he's a big famous writer. Jeffrey was accepted to a very good program for theater and dance. But you wouldn't expect.
Yes. But that's not part of my persona, so we were
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Number 7, create simple and trackable goals to crush them.
Now, let me be clear. I'm just sort of mimicking every politician ever there, but you do have to be clear with this. This is for when you're trying to improve your confidence. When your confidence is in place, you need to have goals that push you. But when you don't feel confident, create small, quick, achievable goals that you should be able to knock out of the park. And when you've knocked them out of the park for the week, make them a little stronger. Make them a little stronger. Build them up over time. And when you get to a point where you're really confident, you break it up into stretch goals. So it's like you'll have your goal, which is now your normal goal that's kind of tough to reach. But then you want a goal beyond it because you always want a way to push yourself further. And you can really use stretch goals the whole way, but especially early on, especially in those areas that you're not confident in, really make some goals surrounding that so you can knock out of the park. So you know what? If you're horrible at dealing with, clients over the phone, call 5 people, cold call 5 people a week. That's your goal. That's easy to do. And you can suck at all of the calls and not get one job. But the thing you'll find is if you can do that for like a month, 2 months, you're going to start losing some of the fear of making the cold calls, and you can actually start improving the way you interact with people over the phone.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Dr. Doreen Stern, who does a lot of work with getting yourself moving and achieving your goals. And I'll put a link to her website in the show notes. But she said when you're trying to do a task, break it down into the smallest possible first step that you could achieve, right? Towards the big, huge goal that you have. So I remember at the time, my goal was that I wanted to get an adjunct job teaching. And that seemed like incredibly overwhelming. So I said, okay, the thing that I can do is I can go on to Google and just search for colleges, within 20 minutes of my house.
You can crush that one in 5 minutes, but you know what? That's a great first goal because it's the same thing. It's like that was her lack of confidence in the area. And if you listen to her talk about teaching now, she has a whole bunch of it. But you know what? She's not been practicing it for years.
But that was the thing. And it was funny because that little thing, just making that first step, got me an adjunct teaching job and then a full-time teaching job. And it moved me through my career as a teacher. And then that's the thing that gave me the confidence to start Accounting in Focus. And now I'm teaching students all over the world.
Thank you, Uncle Google.
And it started with a Google search.
Yeah.
So sometimes that's all you need is that little thing to build up the momentum to get you going.
Yeah.
Okay. So tied to that, number 8 is celebrate all your wins.
And this is one you had best not leave even when you become confident. You should really always celebrate all of your wins because you know what? Even when you're confident, there are setbacks.
Yep.
All of the time. I've had 20 setbacks today, and that's a pretty good day. So there are always going to be setbacks. There are always those things that you didn't plan for that you should have, or you didn't plan for or couldn't have. But the thing that you can do is, but you know what? I can look back at my list of all of my goals and say, I still nailed 3 out of my 5 goals this week.
Yep.
Those 3 checked off your list. Those are wins you should celebrate even if you had more goals.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why when we created the Facebook group for the podcast, which if you're not in the group, facebook.com/groups/smallbizlife.
Join today.
Okay. You can join the group. Every Wednesday, we do Winning Wednesday, where we encourage people in the group to share, no matter how small it is. You know, we've had people that posted like, I got out of bed this morning. We're like, woohoo! Yes! That's awesome. Go. Because you know what? Some days,
That's right.
that's a challenge.
And I'm going to say, and if there anyone who's out there who's not had that day, please let me know how. Because I think I've had that day several times today. 3 times today, actually.
You know, I mean, sometimes it's, you know, I'm staying hydrated. I made 5.
Hey, that's a win for me.
Yeah. You know, I made 5 phone calls today. You know, it doesn't have to be monumental to be something that's celebrated.
Because on a really bad day, and this goes back to the power of failure, you know, but this is the negative side of it. You might have 5 things that go bad that are, and some of them could be monumentally bad, you know, death, disease, you know, maybe a loved one has broken up with you or is told that they're going to divorce you. Really bad things can happen, but you probably took a lot more than 5 things that day. You got through the day. That's sometimes a big win. When you have those really horrific days, you probably did many more things that succeeded that day that you are actually so good at, you don't even recognize that you do.
Right. And that happens a lot when you know, when I work with small business owners and I'm trying to figure out exactly how their business works.
Yeah.
A lot of times they forget steps because it's just so ingrained in them that this is how it works. You kind of have to like shadow along with them for a day to figure out exactly how everything goes.
Yeah. When I was an industrial engineer, the only way we actually tracked what people did was we watched them and we timed things. That's it.
Yeah.
You maybe talk to them beforehand to get an idea if you've no idea what's going on, but ultimately you watch them do their job. You measure all of the steps that they're taking, and that's the only way to know it. And even then, if it's the first time it's happening, you're not going to see everything because some of it they're so good at doing. You can look away for a second and they've finished something already.
Yeah. Okay. And this is the last tip. And we had different names for this. We're going to go with Jeffrey's. Be the you want to be.
That's right. And that's an awesome, thoughtful, great name.
Mine was fake it till you make it.
Oh, God, I hate that term.
But he hates that. So we went with be the you want to be.
Because the thing is, you're not really faking it.
Well, you're faking confidence until you build your confidence.
No, you're acting the way you want to act.
Okay. I like that better.
We'll
go with that.
You know, and the difference is faking it is that slimy guy who's like, hey, I'm going to build you a website. Yeah, I'll build this website. I'll take care of it for you. It'll be all set. And you get sort of what you asked for. And then you ask for updates, and then they never come.
Or your site's not responsive.
That's faking it.
Yeah, that's true.
To me, being who you want to be better. Well, unless you want to be that guy, then don't be who you want to be. Be someone else.
Yeah.
You know, being who you want to be to me means that you're really making those steps to do the best work that you can, good work, you know, and sometimes you're going to hit home runs out of the park and sometimes it'll just be good and you'll think it's average or below average and they'll look at it and they'll think it's great.
Right.
It's not yours to judge. It's the person who receives the content.
Right. But that's the thing. And, you know, if you're struggling with your confidence, you know, look at the way that you walk.
Mm-hmm.
Is your head up? Are your shoulders back? Are you standing straight? It's funny is I went to a conference last year and after the conference was over, I got an email from one of the attendees and he said, every time I saw you walking, you were walking with purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know what? I said, half the time I had no idea where I was going. I was completely lost.
Mm-hmm.
But if I looked like I knew where I was going,
That's right.
You know, that was enough.
And the irony is big steps make you look like you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
take the good old Army 30-inch step, and people are like, "Oh, out of the way! That person's on their way somewhere."
And it might just be that you're on the way to the bathroom.
Like, where's the bathroom?
But you're walking with purpose, so.
There's some straight similarities between being confident and needing to go to the bathroom.
Yeah. So, if you're not there yet, think about the attributes that you want to have. And remember, we said like a lot of this for people, it's usually, a mental thing and a physical thing. If you walk up straight with your shoulders back, your head held high, I will tell you that there's nothing like looking straight ahead. When my confidence is wavering, that helps me a ton.
Or in the way I'm going to think of it from now on, if it's very important for you to go give this speech and you're frightened to go give this speech, when you walk in that theater, walk to that stage like you gotta pee. Because you know what?
Because you're walking with purpose.
You're walking with purpose at that point. It's and really it's funny, but in a way it's true. When you go to the bathroom, you are confident because you know what you need to do and you're trying to get there to do it.
That might be a meme. Oh boy, I am so glad that that's the last one. So here's what we're going to do. Today we gave you 9 tips to be more confident. Episode 30, we're going to talk about techniques that you can use to help change your overall mindset to not only appear more confident, but to be more confident.
Yeah.
So check out episode 30 for those techniques, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you for listening to Small Biz Life. If you enjoyed the show, please take a few minutes to rate and review the show on iTunes or Stitcher. Please visit smallbizlife.com to view today's show notes, take this week's poll, join the Facebook community, follow us on Twitter, or submit a question for the mailbag. Support the show by checking the resources page or by going to smallbizlife.com/Amazon whenever you shop.
This was Small Biz Life. This was Small Biz Life.